Okay, so I don't know how long I have to record this. Also, for some reason, okay, it just stopped. I was about to say, like, the audio, I was listening to a song on YouTube, and YouTube doesn't really, I don't have YouTube Red, and so it's not supposed to allow me to listen while I'm not in the app, but that was weird. That was a weird moment. Anyways, good morning. How are you? What's groovy? How are you feeling today? By the time this gets posted, it'll likely be January or maybe even February at this pace. I'm not sure. But as I'm recording, it is November. And I don't know. I'm just like in a relatively good mood. I mean, sure, things could be better, but I feel pretty in alignment. I feel pretty good in general about things, and so, you know, I'm just kind of coasting that. I'm just kind of riding that wave. I think it sucks that there are so many people who have chosen to work against me or whatever, but, you know, that's their stupidity, that's their dumbness, you know, because I know who the fuck I am. I know, you know what I mean? I know what I stand for. I know who I am and all that jazz, so I don't really care. You know, also, as I'm recording, it is before 8 o'clock. It is like a little bit after 7. And once again, at this time, I'm staying at a homeless shelter. And they have curfews, they have time stuff, and so coffee's in a couple minutes, and then in less than an hour, there's chapel service, and then we get kicked out, and yeah. I don't really know what to talk about. I'm going to take a moment to give me a second. I didn't take too long to tune in, but what I tuned into was self-belief. So I don't know who's listening to this in the future. I don't know who's tuning in, but maybe there's something about you not believing in yourself and needing to really believe in yourself. I don't mean to tune into the psychic senses. Like, for these videos, I don't really do that consciously. If it happens unconsciously, that's another thing. But I don't usually consciously tune into like my psychic senses when I make these sorts of videos. But there's that energy, I guess, present. Somebody is having a hard time believing in themselves and like putting effort towards themselves. Probably because other people have told you in different ways, maybe even inadvertently, indirectly, that like there's no reason to believe in yourself, you know what I mean? I was thinking this morning about spiritual work and energy work and how a lot of people prioritize, and I'm not in this moment saying either one is worse or better or more necessary. I mean, I'm going to implicate it, I'm going to imply it, but believe whatever you want. But I think we live in a very distorted world where, like, unfortunately, a lot of us are made to believe that it's a lot more important to have money and to have, like, you know what I mean, physical safety rather than spiritual safety or spiritual grounding, you know? And I don't mean to harp on this guy. I talked about him. I made at least like 4 different videos where I talked about him all in one day the other day. But the counselor that I had recently had told me right after I told him how spiritually aligned I am, after he had told me specifically that he admired that. He fixed his stupid lips to tell me that I was headed down the wrong path. And to some degree, there's a part of me that understands that on a core level, on a soul level of like, unfortunately in this world, if you are not 110%, if you are not able to live between both realms, and by both I mean like earth and the spiritual, the unseen, you know what I mean? It can be very difficult to cultivate a life worth living for yourself if you cannot live between both realms. And I think I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I think he was just being an agent of the devil. That's really what I think on a soul level. But if I were to give him the benefit of the doubt, I feel like that's where he was coming from, because he agreed with me when I said that we live in an evil world where people do fucked up things. He agreed with me on that, or at least he nodded his head. I don't know if he actually agreed, but you know what I mean? And then he said that, and so it's like, I get that perspective. It's like, but for you to tell me that I'm going to prison, bitch, fuck you. You are a bad mental health professional. You should lose your fucking job. And I'm not necessarily wishing that directly, but I wish directly, I will say directly, I wish that it was less accessible for certain people to get into that field. I wish that they had more empathy screenings or whatever, you know what I mean? Because like there's a lot of people in that field, and I guess, I don't know, I guess there's a reason for it. Maybe it's a nefarious reason, but you know what I mean? Like, when you really think about the mental health field, like anybody who's gone to a psych ward, anybody who's gone to a mental health facility would probably agree with you that the system is flawed. And we can sit around and we can make the excuse of like humans are flawed, and that's an excuse, and it is also a truth. Humans are flawed. But the real bottom line of it is that like you're just not willing to do the work necessary to be the best that you can be in that area of life. Like, I think that's the bottom line. I was talking with my partner yesterday, and I don't mean to razz on him, but it got into a really intimate conversation, a really deep conversation, and obviously he did not want to have that sort of conversation, but that's where I go. If you're with me, that's where I go. You know what I mean? Just look at my booking videos. You know what I mean? And I feel like, and this isn't about him, I'm just using him as an example, but he kept using the excuse of like humans are flawed and humans stumble, and it's like, yeah, this is true, but like, and I feel like it's really common for people to use that excuse of like humans are flawed, humans make mistakes, and yeah, once again, this is true, but it's also like, but what do you do after you make that mistake? Do you try to learn, or do you just settle and consider that it was a loss? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, it can be difficult. Like I pride myself personally on having understanding and like being an understanding person, right? But I have the perspective that I have the flexibility in my mind that I have. I've always been the type of person to question things and to think critically, you know? So sometimes it's kind of hard for me to really wrap my head around how other people might be limited in their capacity, you know? Because for me, it just comes natural. It's just it's just the way that I flow. Like, you hear the way that I talk, you hear the way that I articulate. I don't think about that consciously. It's just how I flow, you know? And so to some degree, I can understand that for other people, it's a lot difficult to think about deeper concepts and you know what I mean? But for me, it's just who I am. You know what I mean? Also, another thing that I was talking, also, you see how I kind of veered off from the self-belief thing? Believe in yourself, and then I just kind of went on to other tangents. One thing I was thinking about this morning, I guess, was beliefs. And I kind of shifted my beliefs a little bit. I'm not going to talk too in depth about what those beliefs are, but because I've been reading in the Bible recently, again, looking into that, specifically Proverbs. I want to read through Proverbs, and I don't know, like, because once again, I'm a very flexible person in my mind. Like, I am very good at adapting and like squeezing into holes that I might not need to be, you know what I mean? Like, I'm really good at that. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's for anybody to decipher. But that's one of my traits, one of my abilities. And I was telling my partner yesterday, I was like, I change my mind a lot. Like, I have core values, I have core things that I stick to, you know, like truth, integrity, love, respect, stuff like that. But I change the way that I operate quite often because the world changes quite often. And I believe that if you don't change, you will be left in the wind. You will be left in the dust, you know? And obviously I don't want to say it. So, you know, updating software, you know? And I guess that could be a message for somebody about, like, you know, in regards to believing in yourself, needing to update and change your beliefs. Like, I think a lot of people have been made to believe that, and this is going to sound wonky, but whatever they believe is just what it is. You know what I mean? And when you study philosophy, when you study psychology, when you study magic and all this stuff, you understand, you gain an understanding that, like, reality for you as an individual is based off of what you personally believe. And if you're able to shift those beliefs, if you're able to believe in something different, then you can shift your reality. You know what I mean? And this can be a difficult concept for some people to grasp. I don't know. But if you're listening to this, if that resonates for you, like, it is a thing. And to some degree, you have to be careful, once again, with that, because then you can get in the territory of being somebody that isn't really true to your soul. You know, just because you can change into somebody else doesn't mean that you necessarily want to, you know, because let's be honest with ourselves. Let's make sure we're staying in alignment with our spirit, with our soul. I mean, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying, but if you're listening to me, I would imagine that you're at least receptive to the information. So, like, something to consider, like, if you're going to adapt and change, at least be solid within your own internal world, you know? Like, even if you end up feeling like you have to be a mean person, a bully on the external, like, at least keep it in your head who the fuck you are. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to force a perspective on you, but, you know, I would like to believe that we're all extensions of God. We're all extensions of love, you know? And so I would say, you know, even if you have to be mean to people for whatever reason, like, still maintaining that internal essence of, like, I wish you love. I you know what I mean? I'm love. You are love. I'm God. You are, you know what I mean? That sort of energy. That's not going to resonate for everybody. I know that's not going to resonate for everybody, but there's somebody here who's listening who needs that sort of message, you know? So, because like I said before, we live in a fucked up world. And if you can agree to that, then you can understand that sometimes you kind of got to do things that you don't really want to do. I mean, but then again, this is a belief, you know? This is a belief. Because you don't really have to do anything you don't want to do. If you wanted to live under a bridge, you could live under a bridge. There are laws in certain states or whatever around being homeless in certain areas. You know what I mean? Like, I learned recently that apparently sleeping on the sidewalk is completely illegal. I've never thought to sleep on a sidewalk personally, even when I was homeless, but I didn't know that, you know? But the point is, you can do whatever you want. Like, we have free will. And recently I've been thinking about free will in relation to, like, God's will, because it was like a message of chapel service at some point like a few days ago. And I was thinking about that, and once again, the idea of it being a belief, I was thinking about it from that perspective, because I was like, you know, when you don't follow God's will, there are consequences, and I was vibing with that belief. I was agreeing with that belief, flowing with that belief. But then this morning I was thinking about that, and I was like, to some degree, I don't want to, because when we're getting into philosophy, because to some degree it's only true because I agree that it is true. You know, when we recognize, when we understand that we as flawed humans are still an extension of God, are still an extension of Source, are still an extension of unconditional love, when we understand that, then once again you kind of have more freedom to move and shift your own beliefs and not be so pigeoned to, like, oh, well, this external source wants me to X, Y, and Z. Now, I think to some degree, when we're talking about spirit, when we're talking about soul, I think to some degree there are objective things of truth. Like, I personally find it very difficult to believe that anybody's spirit, anybody's soul, without any reason for karmic retribution or anything like that, it's hard for me to personally believe that anybody's spirit, like, if you were to boil it down, take away the human aspect, that anybody's spirit, anybody's soul would, like, actively seek out to harm. You know what I mean? Like, but maybe that's just a belief. Maybe that's just not how people operate, how spirits, how the soul operates. I'll say that, not spirit, soul, the soul, like the essence. That is, you know what I mean? I don't know. Once again, we're getting into philosophy a little bit, so believe what you want. But you know. Anyways, I'm gonna end this here because I have to go soon. I'm gonna get a tiny bit of coffee. I'm gonna try not to fucking overload my system like I did yesterday. I had 2 cups of coffee. Regretted that so fucking much. So I'm gonna try not to do that today. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope you know that God loves you so fucking much, man. I hope you know miracles happen all the time. And whatever you're fucking going through, man, excuse my language, I don't know why I started swearing, but whatever you're going through is very temporary. So keep your head up, keep your spirits high, and trust in that. Trust in yourself. Believe in yourself, man. It'll be okay. I love you, bye.